Hi everyone, my name's Dr. Jon McNeill and I am the Programme Leader for MSc Risk Management here at Glasgow Caledonian University. Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction about our course and about some of the subject areas that you'd study with us as part of our programme. Now the MSc has been running since 1996, so that's for almost 30 years now. We've been helping develop risk managers to go on and have careers in areas such as banking, insurance, project management, crisis management, all around the world. And when we designed this latest version of the programme, we wanted to ensure that we had a programme which offered a perspective on risk and its management, which was grounded in how organisations actually function. So we've taken a very much people and process enterprise risk approach, which helps you make risk-based decisions all across your organisation. And we've found that employers really value our approach. And as evidence of this, you'll see that our programme is double accredited by both the Institute of Risk Management and the Chartered Insurance Institute. And what this means is that everyone who completes our programme can be sure that they're doing work which will be recognised by highly reputable professional institutes who themselves are recognised the world over. So I had various options for how I would present information to you today, and I thought rather than present you with a structure of the programme, I'd actually give you a brief scenario of an organisational crisis and use that as a way to give you a bit of background as to how some of the modules that you'll study or some of the concepts that you'll study within modules might actually contribute to a better understanding of risk. So to continue with that, I'll first introduce you to the case study, and you'll see on your screen, hopefully, it's a cyber attack on a fictional global healthcare provider called Meditech Global. And what this organisation found was that one morning its IT systems were disrupted by a ransomware attack. And what this meant was patient records, appointments, systems, and its billing platforms were all inaccessible. Inaccessible at least until they were willing to pay the attackers, those responsible for the ransomware attack, £10 million in cryptocurrency in order for them to regain access to their systems. Until that happened, or another solution could be found, the operations of Meditech Global were halted. They had been stopped. That meant that surgeries were delayed and patients had to be turned away. So let's look at how some of your modules and some of the relevant concepts you'll learn about would have approached this type of event. Well, the first would be, for example, strategic foresight analysis. Now, strategic foresight analysis is all about trying to predict possible futures for your organisation. And it will do this using tools such as horizon scanning, scenario planning. And the goal here is that the foresight teams within the risk department will look to identify signals of change, which could indicate vulnerability. So that could be the healthcare company has become increasingly dependent on its IT systems. It's become highly dependent on the interconnection between those systems and the internet. And perhaps there's been emerging weaknesses in its digital resilience strategy. And once it collects this knowledge, the foresight team, it can help understand how future risks might actually unfold. It identifies the signals, and then it works out how they might materialise in the future. If this can be done properly, then the organisation may actually have plans in place in order to respond to events such as the one outlined in the case study. The next area might involve behavioural risk management, which is one of the areas that I teach. Behavioural risk management explores why people within organisations who make decisions about risk might sometimes see the warning signs but fail to act on them. And behavioural risk managers would attribute the failure to act to cognitive biases, issues with our psychology as human beings, which causes us to underestimate certain risks and overestimate others. And these cognitive biases, therefore, distort our judgment. It makes us believe things like it won't happen to us, or it happened in the past and we were okay, and therefore we'll be okay again here, so we don't need to spend as much time preparing for it. These biases, therefore, create blind spots that technical systems can't overcome. We need behavioural risk managers who understand the psychology of people and how they think about risk in order to counteract these biases, to ensure that the plans that we put in place are proportionate to the risks that our organisation faces. Otherwise, we won't be prepared. Another area could be quantitative risk modelling, and this is where we measure risk. A good organisation, it will, once a risk materialises, possibly beforehand, it will look to model the exposures and the consequences numerically. It'll try to give uncertainty a shape, and that's what you see in your screen, that bell curve. That's giving uncertainty and risk a shape. And what the shape does is it produces financial estimates, for example, of downtime costs or costs associated with ransomware payment options. It quantifies financial exposure to different scenarios, different responses to risk. It gives the decision makers a clearer picture of what's at stake. So in the case of Meditech Global, it could be modelling scenarios such as paying the ransom versus restoring systems without paying the ransom. And this helps to give decision makers a more informed perspective on the costs associated with different options. Another area also concerned with the financial aspects of risk would be insurance management. And this is all about understanding what risks can be financially transferred and how that transfer can support financial resilience when a risk materialises. Had the risk team done their job properly, then Meditech Global would hopefully have had a cyber insurance policy in place which had covered it for ransomware. It would have understood any exclusions, and its coverage would have aligned with its risk appetite and its wider risk financing strategy. So this could have meant having coverage which supported payment of ransomware demands of up to £10 million. If they'd only insured up to 5 million, for example, they would have a £5 million shortfall that they would need to find funding for themselves. So really the goal here of effective insurance management is that when risk occurs, the organisation won't fall apart financially. It'll have access to the financial resources that it requires in order to support its recovery. A final area would be crisis management, and crisis management here focuses on how organisations respond when the best made plans that they have are unfortunately insufficient to either prepare for the risk or respond to it effectively. So crisis management will see crisis and continuity plans which prioritise essential services, which recover key assets in order of importance in order to minimise the amount of time operations are disrupted for, and also to come up with crisis communication plans to communicate with the organisation's stakeholders. In the case of Meditech Global, they would want to communicate to its staff, to its regulator perhaps, to its patients most certainly. And the goal here, as I say, isn't to eliminate disruption. Unfortunately, it's too late for that, but it's to try and control its trajectory and minimise the amount of time that operations are disrupted for. So what happens when we put all these pieces together? Well, in theory, we complete the risk management jigsaw and we start to see what risk management really is. It's not a single skill and it's not a single discipline. It's an interconnected way of thinking about risk. Each of the aspects that I've spoken to you until this point adds a distinct layer of understanding, which helps inform the organisation's response and ability to deal with risk. Foresight helps us anticipate change. Behavioural risk management, it helps us understand why people make the choices they do. Quantitative risk modelling, it gives us the numbers so that we can guide choices. Insurance provides financial protection. And hopefully, crisis management will assist with recovery and resilience when things go wrong. It's an integrated framework which brings anticipation, behaviour, analysis, protection and recovery all under the one umbrella. And it's a really skilled way of thinking about risk, which helps organisations be confident that they are well prepared for any future which may come their way. So hopefully you found that interesting. I've tried to keep it quite succinct, but also quite informative. And you may have some questions. I'm absolutely happy to answer those. You can contact me directly at jon.mcneill@gcu.ac.uk, or if it's something specific about your application, please contact the admissions team here at GCU and they'll be happy to assist you. If there is one thing though that I would like to flag to you before you leave, it is that our programme isn't just a case of lecturers like me speaking and future risk managers like yourself listening. We like to get you involved. We get you involved in the classroom through scenarios, through quizzes, through group projects, through presentations. We do our best to bring industry into the classroom to give you real world perspectives on the theory that we're teaching you. We build in case studies. We run a risk clinic where you can work with organisations and practitioners from organisations on real world cases. And that really does help to bring our curriculum alive, and it makes you an active learner as you work towards developing your skills, which make you a highly employable risk manager of the future. So hopefully you find that interesting. Thank you for listening to me. And as I say, feel free to reach out to the admission teams or myself if you have any questions. Thank you very much.